In the midst of World War II, the city of Paris was a labyrinth of chaos and fear. Beneath its streets lay an even more bewildering maze. The ancient catacombs, miles of tunnels lined with the bones of the dead. It was here that Julien, a young resistance fighter, found himself trapped. Julien had been carrying vital information to the underground network when German soldiers spotted him. Desperation drove him into the catacombs, the soldiers' shouts echoing behind him. The entrance he chose was hidden behind a crumbling mausoleum, a passage rarely used but still remembered by those who knew the city's secrets. The air grew colder as Julien descended into the darkness, the flickering light of his torch casting eerie shadows on the walls. The shouts from above faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that weighed on him like a shroud. He navigated the narrow passageways, the sense of being watched growing stronger with each step. Suddenly, a distant, inhuman growl reverberated through the tunnels. Julien's blood ran cold. The stories of a monstrous guardian lurking in the catacombs had always been dismissed as mere legend, but now, in the bowels of the earth, he felt their truth. Julien quickened his pace, the growls growing louder and more frequent. He could hear the distant sound of soldiers' boots striking stone, drawing nearer. Caught between the advancing soldiers and the unknown horror, he pushed himself deeper into the catacombs, hoping to find an escape route. As he turned a corner, his torchlight revealed an ancient, ornate chamber, its walls lined with skulls and bones arranged in macabre patterns. In the center of the room stood a massive stone altar, covered in cryptic runes. The air was thick with a foul stench, and Julien's heart pounded in his chest. A bone-chilling roar echoed through the tunnels, closer now, almost upon him. Julien knew he had to hide. He squeezed into a narrow crevice between two columns of bones, extinguishing his torch and praying the darkness would conceal him. Moments later, the monster emerged into the chamber. It was a grotesque abomination, with twisted limbs and eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. It sniffed the air, its growls filling the chamber with a palpable menace. Julien held his breath, the sound of his heartbeat thunderous in his ears. The soldiers' voices grew louder, their footsteps closing in. Julien's mind raced. He had to lead the monster away from the chamber and the soldiers. He grabbed a loose bone from the wall and threw it into a distant tunnel. The creature's head snapped towards the sound, and with a final, guttural snarl, it bounded after the noise. Julien emerged from his hiding spot, his heart pounding with both fear and relief. The soldiers burst into the chamber moments later, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Julien knew he had only one chance. He darted past them, slipping into the tunnel the monster had vacated. The soldiers, momentarily stunned by the sight of the beast, quickly regained their composure and began firing at it. The cacophony of gunfire and monstrous roars filled the catacombs, echoing through the labyrinthine passages. Julien ran, his lungs burning, guided only by instinct and the faint hope of survival. He could hear the chaos behind him, the soldiers' shouts mingling with the enraged roars of the monster. He stumbled upon an old, rusted gate and pushed it open, finding himself in a long-forgotten sewer tunnel. He followed the tunnel until he saw a glimmer of light ahead. With the last of his strength, Julien emerged into the open air, the sweet smell of freedom filling his nostrils. He collapsed on the ground, the distant sounds of the catacombs fading behind him. Julien knew the war was far from over, but he had escaped the nightmare below. As he lay there, catching his breath, he vowed never to return to the catacombs, those dark, haunted tunnels where both the living and the dead waged their eternal battles.